Perfect. I think all the tech things are lined up and we are good to go. So, sorry, starting a couple of minutes late, but for anyone that is joining us live on LinkedIn, I am going to be keeping an eye out in the chat box. So, I have been gathering questions from everybody all week long, and they are the most fabulous questions. I'm so excited to kind of round out this month's conversation with Stephanie. But if you are joining us live on LinkedIn, I will have my eyeballs on that chat box. If you want to add any thoughts or any last minute questions, please feel free to pop those in there. So, Stephanie is joining us. She is the founder of the Organized Flamingo. And if you have not seen all of my posts going up leading up to this week, please go check her out. Give her a follow on Instagram and all the other social channels. She shares the most amazing tips and strategies on how to organize your life, which is something I think that we all could use and that we all need. She also specializes with the sandwich generation. And truth be told, when I first met Stephanie, I had never heard that term before. And Stephanie, I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but I secretly went and Googled it after the first time that you used that term because I had no idea what it was and I didn't want to look totally clueless when I was chatting with you. So, for those of you that may not know, the sandwich generation is pretty much my generation. We are where we are taking care of kids, like we have kids that we're raising, or we at least are of that age that we could be. But we also have parents that are starting to need our care as well. And we are sandwiched in between those two generations of offering care and support. So I'm very lucky and blessed that my parents are super independent and are able to live an independent life right now. But I have plenty of friends who are dealing with that. Who are the same age as me. And so there's a lot of inheriting of items and belongings, and that in itself can create a lot of clutter and a need for organization as well. And I know that's something that you specialize in. So thank you so much. I know that was a long introduction, but I'm so excited to have you. And thank you so much for joining us today. So,
Thanks for having me, Amy.
yeah.
I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So we are just going to get straight into it. I have a ton of questions, and I'm not sure that we're going to have time to go through every single one of them. So we're just going to kick off and answer as many as we can. So we've been talking all month about like streamlining our processes to increase productivity. And we really have talked about like day-to-day time management, dealing with things that come up randomly in our day and how do we face those and how do we stay streamlined, right? But there is a really big part of streamlining our physical space and decluttering that space. And I will never forget, and one of the reasons that you came first to mind for today's conversation, I have an incredible life coach in New Zealand. Her name is Bridget, and I've worked with her for years. And one of the times that we were working together, she talked about setting up my physical space. And I am just not that person that really buys into like needing aesthetically pleasing environments. Like I'm put my nose to the grind and go, girl. And I was very dismissive of her advice initially. And the more that I was like, whatever, I'll go ahead and set up my environment to make it look good, just to honestly please my coach, if I can be really honest, the more I felt at peace, the more I felt productive, the more I felt like, oh, let me go into my office and into my Zen zone. And it felt inviting and it felt really good. And so now you can see I've got a comfy chair behind me. I have some of my most favorite things. Some of these things I've had from childhood. This is actually a picture of my great grandfather. And it's too small for you to be able to see. I'll share it on social later, but he's holding me. I'm an infant and we're on his farm feeding chickens. So I really now like understand the importance of how our physical environment directly correlates to our productivity, to how we feel when we show up in our home, and especially if we work from home. So it just made a lot of sense to have you as a part of this conversation. So, with that being said, our first question that we're going to start off with today is how can someone maintain a clutter free space long term, right? So, I think a lot of my followers we're kind of expressing that like we can get it together on a weekend, right? But long term, it clutters back up, especially if they have a tendency to accumulate things quickly. So I full disclosure, I've got a pile of papers over here and a pile of papers right here. I have two ink cartridges I haven't put in the printer here. I am one of those people as well. So how do we maintain that long term if we can get over that initial hump of decluttering?
Yeah. Well, it's so good to be here and meet meet virtually many of your community because I follow all of you and what you do very closely. And what happens when you are a busy person and or hectic or you're a go-getter. Let's even not put the negative connotation to it, right? You're just a go-getter and you will really strive for either more or better or competitive, or you just like that's your drive. um, what ends up happening with this type of personality is that we clump getting and staying organized as a one action deal, right? Because you are trying to be more productive and you are trying to be more efficient. So in your day-to-day personality, everything becomes like, how can I multi-use this? How can I like get the most bang for my buck, if you will? Well, that's what ends up happening with productivity and clutter and physical stuff.
Hmm.
We end up putting it all into one basket and trying to get rid of it all very quickly. So my first tip on this is, even though that is our, our what we gravitate towards, I would encourage people to separate the two. For a long time, the organized flamingo, we still do. One of our main slogans was helping you get and stay organized, because there's two
Right.
different actions there. So my first would just be separate the two. One is
Okay.
the get, what you mentioned, right? Like, oh, company is coming. I have a big event or I have a party, so I need to clean up and organize.
Right.
And somehow miraculously, you just decluttered and you just tidied up, and all of a sudden everything has a home. My gosh,
For
because there was
sure.
a trigger there that helped you. But staying organized has a lot to do with habits. And that is kind of
Mm,
your space right there, right? Like the trying to stay organized is going to be a process, a journey, and it's either a personality or lifestyle change where you have to incorporate
mm,
habits. So separate the two, be proud and be kind with yourself that if you are just a really good get organized person, you are
mhm,
good at getting spark of inspiration, because company
mhm,
is coming, because you're neurodivergent, whatever that may reason. So be proud of that,
mhm,
and
mhm.
then approach the other part as more of a long-term change and habit change. And then you'll
Right,
start seeing it become habitual,
right.
the more the time passes by.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. I never thought about separating the two. I never thought about that. And I love that you hit on the neurodivergent part too, right? Because some of my clients are neurodivergent and almost see that as like a shortcoming or something that they need to get over. And I like that it's almost like you can leverage that getting there part with whatever your personality is. So, and this may be a loaded question, and I'm sure that there's not one size fits all answer to this, but is there a really great like tip or strategy that you use for the changing of the habit? Because I can see that that almost might be a little bit harder than the initial like kickoff and getting there.
Yeah. So because now we're entering in habit world, and it requires more of the getting through sometimes there's trauma associated with it. Sometimes it's the release of old, whether it doesn't even have to be traumatic. It could just be old habits, old ways
Hmm.
of doing things, because maybe culturally you did it that way, your family, maybe
Mm,
the way that you worked in an environment, it was done that way. We carry a lot of that habitual, those
hmm,
motions from either work as well.
hmm,
So when you're starting with those habits, I like to use the analogy of the bucket. And when you're kind of full, you're full of old ways of doing things. They could be good, they could be bad, it doesn't matter, but it's very
okay.
heavy. Let's use a five gallon bucket as an example. If you
Okay.
lift it, no matter how strong you are, it's heavy. We're full of water, it's heavy. And you can either dump it all at once, but that's going to be pretty extreme, pretty dramatic. And to even lift it up, and it's more work.
Hmm.
So what I like to tell people is definitely start in small increments of habits. See what you like, what you don't like, because sometimes you try to dump all of those past things. I'm
Right.
just gonna say things because it could be the
Yeah,
good and the bad
yeah.
and the ugly. And maybe there will be regret. There will be like, oh wait,
Hmm.
that was part of who I was. Maybe what
Hmm.
you thought was a traumatic event is really something that you enjoyed. You know, the way that your
Hmm.
grandfather passed on something that you do all the time. That could be something you love, but somehow you dumped it all with just one big motion. So starting small with the small habits. There's a couple books. The two most well in this space tend to be the
Hmm.
Atomic Habits
Hmm.
and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. And
Okay.
so it's just all about small habits, doing those small things and learning,
Right.
relearning what you want out of life and going forward. The biggest tip out of all this, so it's the
Hmm.
habit world,
Hmm.
is having a very clear conversation with your therapist, your coach, yourself about what your plan is. Like, what is your goal? Why are you even trying to be
Okay.
organized? Like,
Okay.
having like a
Okay.
really deep conversation, because then that will help you release what you need to and keep what you could be keeping and you just think
Hmm.
it should be gone, but it shouldn't.
Right. 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 I love that bucket example. If you don't mind, I might have to steal that. With some of my clients in the future. That's amazing, but it makes tons of
Yeah.
sense, right? Like dumping the whole thing out at one time, even trying to lift it to do that is going to be overwhelming, right? But yeah, I imagine that as you make those little changes, remembering the why of why you're doing it is going to help you stay a little bit more consistent, and not feel so
Mm-hmm.
bad. Okay, I love it.
Maybe
Thank
when
you.
you try to be a whole new person, you're trying to be a whole new person and you're dumping. It's a shock to the system. Like, wait a minute.
Right. There's no way that can be
Whoa, I'm left
sustainable,
with
right? Like,
nothing. Yeah, yeah.
and I imagine too, and I tell my clients this all the time on any change that they're making, whether it's routine or, I imagine in a situation like this too, giving yourself grace because you go in with great intentions and no matter what, it's not going to execute 100% the way that you thought it was, right? It's just not.
Absolutely.
You may do it 100% for a week or a day or, maybe even high achievers for a month, but it's not going to be something that is, there's going to be a day where it doesn't work, right? And having the grace on, like, even if this is what's working and a strategy I want to stick with, like giving myself the grace to figure it out and to not do it perfectly too, as we're relearning and changing that pattern. Yeah. Okay. So, second question here was directly relating that decluttering, of their space to productivity. And I know we touched on that a little bit, but this person says that they do work from home. So she's feeling like there's some buy-in to the idea that there will be an impact on decluttering her space and having productivity, but she wants to know, does it really help? And does it help with work productivity and personal productivity? How have you seen that play out?
Yes. So the simple answer is yes, it absolutely they are correlated. So studies have found that the visual stuff, the physical stuff that you
Hmm.
see or feel or touch or is around you is a direct representation of either how you're feeling or how life is happening around you. It doesn't, again, we're not putting a
Wow.
positive or negative. It's very neutral. It just is.
Right.
So aside from the studies, let's do more of actionable things that you
Hmm.
can be doing
Hmm. Okay.
because I have through study and through actually working with people have seen that it does affect the way that they work and it could be a distraction, it could be an enhancement, it could be an inspiration. If you, let's say you are a person in right now in your life where you're writing a book where you need to have a lot of concentration, we have a lot of that with people who work in a computer programming or they need a long period
Hmm.
of time of concentration of some sort, artists.
Yeah.
So the space around them needs to be conducive to that, whether it's they
Right.
can't have any distractions or they need that, right? So yes, absolutely that
Hmm.
will make it, they will change. But that being said, productivity is something that, again, you need to have what your goals are. And then once you figure out, okay, well, I just need moments of time with no zero distraction. So for you, your space will need to be a little bit more emptier. That doesn't mean with
Hmm.
nothing, just empty of those distractions.
Right. Right.
So what I always suggest is for people to have multifunctional spaces that can be easily moved to what it is that you need. So,
Oh,
for instance, I've
okay.
talked about this where It could be a physical boundary. It could be a tape. It could be tape, that you're like, this is my work, especially for those working
I
at
love
home.
that.
This is my work. This box, this tape right here signifies that this little corner of this living room is my
Right.
workspace. For some of you, it might be a full curtain or a full partition wall. For some
Okay.
of you, it will be a movable furniture piece where, or either a Murphy bed or, furniture that can this dual purpose.
Okay.
For some of you, that's extra work, right? So you just have to play with your own space. But think
Sure.
about very clear boundaries for when you need to work to achieve
Hmm.
that productivity you identified you need to in order to succeed for whatever your goal is.
Right.
So kind of start from there and then mark your boundaries from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense actually, because I have worked from home since I think it was 2012. I haven't left the house to do a job, unless I'm speaking or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it is so tempting to do the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my head, it's like, oh, I can just go pop it in the dryer real fast. It'll take 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
right? But mentally, there's a task switching that needs to
Mm-hmm.
happen. And on the way to the laundry room, I'm reminded of the dishes in the sink or of the carpet that the cat threw up on or whatever, right? Like instead of just staying in that zone of what I need to focus on in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
vice versa too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if I didn't have a clear boundary on where my work is, and now you can see right here, I can close the door. I have my own office, but this is the first time I've ever had that. And so it was not hard for me if I was sitting watching TV with my kid at night to remember an email that I forgot to send, but my laptop used to stay on the little shelf underneath my coffee table, and it was super easy to pull it out and do that
Mm-hmm.
quick work
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
and
gosh,
that and that goes
yeah.
for just from work from your that actual space itself. If you are
Hmm.
doing quite a bit of switching and you need that sense of productivity
Hmm.
because that's to measure your own success or for your work, right? Because
Right.
that's really why we want to be productive so that you can measure. So for some of you, it may just be having a basket. Like I have a basket, you can't see it on the corner where we put all our pillows and blankets in there, right? But it's
Right.
very quick. Like if I need to get on a Zoom right now and I don't want all those pillows or all those blankets all over, it is one
Hmm.
action of putting it in that basket and putting the lid on it. But that
Right.
doesn't mean I'm hiding it. It has a purpose. I understand that it is for my productivity. It's to be, to come out as more of a professional video, and so that there's
Right.
none of that visual distraction. There is a reason. I'm not doing it to hide something. I'm not doing it to procrastinate on
Right.
something, which is many of the reasons as to why we end up hiding. We tidy, but we don't have a purpose. So then it becomes clutter very quickly.
Right.
And so that's why
Right.
people are saying, like, but I am tidy, or I am, or I always pick up, or I'm clean. Like, well, you are, but there's no purpose to that tidiness. So now
Hmm.
that drawer is filling up now because you're hiding it, and you're delaying decisions, which is
Right.
procrastination. And that leads to the clutter later on.
Yes. It's really funny that you gave that example. And thank God my husband is not on LinkedIn or any social media, so he'll never see this and he'll never know I share this. But he is like the master at throwing things in drawers. And I'm a pretty organized person. And when we first got married, I thought I was doing him a favor by cleaning out his drawers. Yeah, like you couldn't even open them. Like when I say like, shoving them, I mean like to the brim full. And I was like, oh, he's gonna be so happy when he gets home from work today. Like it's clean, he can open it, he knows what's in there. And it was an epic disaster, and he was so upset. And we found out that this is what he grew up doing. If company was coming over, it was throw everything in drawers, in cabinets.
Yeah.
And
And if
it's just,
that is the purpose, that's great. There is that basket is mine. I'm going to be on Zoom. I'm going to shove it. I'm not folding, I'm shoving it in there. But that basket has a very clear purpose. It is my shoving because I'll be on Zoom basket. When you give the purpose, it becomes different than I'm hiding it so that
right,
I don't address it right now. So
right, exactly. I
yeah.
love
And
it.
so
I
he
love
needs to
it.
have I'm delaying this decision drawer. And
Yes.
then every time he sees it, it's all
Right.
of his delayed
Right.
decisions.
And no
So finally
shame,
it's done.
right? Like that's its
No,
purpose, right?
no, absolutely. That's the purpose. And now you have
Oh
acknowledgement,
my God.
and hopefully from there you can decide
Yes. Yes.
mindfully if that's right
Yeah.
or wrong for
Yeah.
you, neutrally.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. You will never have to wonder like which side of the bed is his and mine because our nightstands are also like super clear. Like it's really
Like
obvious.
Amy was here.
Exactly. Amy lives on this side, Joel lives on that side. I love it. But yeah, that was learning for me of like this. I thought I was giving you a gift, but I wasn't. Like this is how you were choosing to operate, and it was an acceptance and a holding space for like this is how you operate, and I'm okay with that, right? Like as long as you don't cross into my side, we'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Right, right.
All right, awesome. Okay. So, knowing that a lot of my followers and the people that were submitting these questions are female entrepreneurs or what I like to call mom bosses, so either in their own business or maybe for the company that they work for, they asked, can you share any specific decluttering methods or routines that are particularly effective for people with busy lifestyles? And I think this is such an important conversation to have because a lot of times we are pulled in a thousand directions, right? And those are strategies I talk about separately, but we do feel a lot of times like we're being pulled in so many different areas that it's and I this is terrible, but it's always the thing that's like easiest to put off, you know. The laundry can wait, or the dishes can wait, or going through, that box can wait. But in truth, it's still in the back of our mind, and it makes us feel like we fell short or we never feel like we've gotten ahead or accomplished. I had a gentleman at the workshop I talked out last week, and he was like, I never feel ahead. I feel like I'm just staying afloat. And it's things like that are causing that. So, are there any methods that are just really like on point for people that are super busy?
Yeah. So there's a couple of yes. I mean, the short answer, yes, of course. There's a couple of methodologies that we like to use kind of in the organizing world, more both in the productivity, but for physical stuff, the organizing part. It's so at its core, organizing is the act of finding the things you need when you need them in the most efficient way possible. That's really
Okay.
why you do organizing. Okay.
Okay.
Organized is and then we all start thinking of organizing in buzzwords like organized has a branch in aesthetically pleasingness.
Hmm.
That is a way to become organized, meaning that is a way that you might need in order to go find the things that you need in the most efficient way possible. If
Hmm.
you're an aesthetically pleasing visual person, then you will need that order. And that's probably why you gravitate towards the things that are pretty or very symmetrical, or you follow your favorite content creator or influencer, right? Because that gives you inspiration, that gives you
Okay.
some kind of visual representation of this of what you want your space to be, right?
Sure. That
But
makes
at the
sense.
core, it's making sure that you can find what you need as efficiently as possible. And when you're a busy person, you need that more than anything else
Mm,
because when
true.
you need the scissors, it's I'm out the door. Like I need it now to cut the tag behind, like my for my son's shirt. I'm just saying it for a friend. I'm hypothetically. You need it right now. If you can't find the pair of scissors because you don't have a home for it, because there's nothing that has made sense to you as to where you would find it, then
Hmm.
that's not being organized.
Right.
Now, if your mother-in-law comes and says you're not organized, that is her interpretation of how she would be able or not be
Okay.
able to find the things that she
Right.
needs. So that is her interpretation. You need to find yours. So if you are a person who is busy and the last thing you do is really have any order in your home because it feels daunting, just remember that if you can find the thing, then maybe all you need is a maintenance. Maybe you're just not clean. Maybe it's different than being organized, but if you
Okay.
disorganize, but if you can
Okay.
never find something, and so you're buying duplicate, and now you have a pile of stuff, then now is a good time for you to figure out what that system is going to be for you. Methodologies are a dime a dozen out there. Everyone has one. We have our own framework. We have our 7 steps of organizing almost anything.
Hmm.
You have the famous TV show people. We all have one. So you can find one out there. The secret will be here. The secret sauce in here is to find the one that resonates with you. The
Okay.
one that you feel like that makes sense to me. If you are listening to someone's methodology and it's kind of being forced down your throat a little bit because you're
Mm,
seeing it on social media or the
right.
TV show or everyone's
Right.
buying the book, but if there's something inside you that's like, that's just not sustainable, then that
Right.
methodology is not going to be for you. So if you're a busy person, read a couple things, go online, look at organizing systems, and start to go down the rabbit hole of what, or talk to your coach, or
Right.
talk
Right.
to
Right.
your therapist or someone who is
Yeah.
on your side to help you find that,
Right.
so that you can go find the things when you need them as efficiently as possible. That's going to be the key. Get you there.
I've never heard that definition before, but it makes perfect sense. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, like, or think of like spread. I mean, like, really, we
right.
organize data. We organize data. We organize all
Yes.
kinds of things. I mean,
Yes.
Google has
Yes.
made an entire business out of
Right.
organized data
Right.
that people
Right.
can get to as easily and
If
efficiently as
if
possible.
they
And
want to,
bingo, they've got
right.
success. That's what you want in your personal life in a
That's
very
epic.
simplistic manner.
Yeah.
You just have to
Yeah.
find that for yourself.
Right. 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 I mean, that's epic. And it actually makes me feel a lot better because my husband's junk drawer, not to harp on him, in the kitchen, it's the landing space for all the extra keys, like the extra car keys, my parents' house key, my brother's house key. And God only knows where it's in there. Like it'll take me 5 minutes to like figure it out and sort through it and find it, but I know the keys are in there. That's their home. So in a way, that is still organization, even if it's not like perfect and pristine. I know that's the home for that thing, and when I need to lay hands on it, that's directly where I go. And every single time I've been able to find them in that drawer. So there's still a sense of organization there. It's still
It might not be
functioning the way I need
styled.
to. Right,
Might not be
right,
styled. It might
right.
not be, and we can use other descriptive words in there,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's where you would find it and
But
your
it's
mind knows
working.
where to get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
in its return, disorganized as it
That's
is.
amazing. That's amazing. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. We didn't have time for everything, but I think we hit on the most important highlights of that conversation. So, I am again going to repeat if you would like to connect with Stephanie. So at the Organized Flamingo on Instagram. And what is the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to hit you up for your services or any more tips? Is it Instagram, your website, email? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, we're very active on Instagram, here on
Okay.
LinkedIn as well. All social media is theorganizedflamingo.com, and or the organized flamingo. And you can
Perfect.
get on our newsletter. So any of those, but you can just find us by looking up
Awesome.
the organized flamingo. Thanks,
Okay.
Katie,
All
for having
right.
me.
Beautiful. And I will make sure that I tag you in all the things. So if you want to go check out either one of our posts, you'll be able to find all of that information. And this is going to be available on replay. I will make sure it's accessible for everybody. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us and for being a part of this conversation today. It has been an honor to finish out the month of June on this incredibly enlightening note and educational note. So thank you, Stephanie. And we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much.